All right, so here we've got the banded row. Main difference between this and our chest supported row is you're going to be keeping control of your body in position here. So as you're pulling the weight, just trying to refrain from leaning forwards or backwards, using your abs to stay right in place. Working a lot of the same muscles as we would with a regular row. Although with the strength curve of the band versus a cable, it's obviously going to get a lot heavier as you're pulling back. And you're going to start to lose a little resistance as you come forward. So just trying to maintain tension with whatever band you have. Main thing is just making sure whatever it's anchored against is safe and secure. As you're going to be pulling against it, so you don't want to dislodge anything. If you're in a hotel, be really careful if you're using like a door handle. If you're in a gym, you'll probably have some bigger piece of equipment or some poles or something that you can wrap your band onto. And keep it about the same kind of 2-2-4 pace. Working a lot of those same muscles like we said earlier. Another really good exercise for our posture. All right, so now on this one, we're showcasing a rear delt fly. We're working more of the back of the shoulders here and in between the shoulder blades. It's another really good postural exercise, just like our row. We're focusing on that low shoulder position, so actively pulling those shoulder blades down as we keep those arms straight. And then just like with all of our other banded exercises, the most tension you're going to have is as you bring the cables and handles all the way out and apart. So that's where you're going to want to emphasize that pause and also your maximum contracted position for those muscles. All right, so this is our lateral raise. We're keeping the arms out straight. We're leading with the pinkies coming up to the ceiling here. And here we're going to be working the sides of the shoulders. We're making sure we're keeping the traps really relaxed. So stand really low with the shoulders, just making those arms as long as you can as you bring your arms up out to the side. And just making sure you're staying within ranges that are comfortable on your shoulders. If you have any kind of pain here, you should either adjust the weight, the pace of the movement, or the range of motion. So here we've got a variation of the lateral raise. This one's going to keep you with your arms bent so that we are limiting it to just the shoulder joint here. So not going to be limited by any kind of forearm weakness or tightness there. That's also a really good way to help isolate that lateral delt here. We're going for about a 2-2-4 count here. We're staying really low with our shoulder blades, pressing out through the handles. Handle height here, we can keep about mid-torso level so that we're not having to bring our shoulders up as we're bringing our elbows back. On the chest press, we're primarily working those pressing muscles. It's going to be chest, shoulders, back of the arms, triceps. So really good functional exercise anytime we're opening a door, anytime we're putting something up overhead. We're going to be using a lot of these same muscles here. And for the upper body, we're looking for around about 8 to 12 rep range is what we're going to make as a goal. At this same slow pace, that's going to get you around to the time under tension goal that we're looking for in our regular workouts. And you can carry this one on back. I've got it right there. All right, so here we have our compound pull here. We've got multi-joint exercise. This is our row machine. So you're going to be dragging your elbows back. Think about dragging your elbows low across the floor. We're coming back in 2 seconds. Holding that pause all the way back for 2 seconds, coming forward in 4. We're now working the muscles on the front of the arms, the biceps. We're working a bit of the mid-back, so your traps and rhomboids. And with this posture here, we're keeping it a little lower along the mid-back, so not quite getting into the upper traps here is our goal. And just like with the chest press, we're looking for about 8 to 12 reps. That's going to get us to our time range goal. We want the weights to be challenging enough to where by the time you get to that last rep, you're pulling fairly hard and you're doing your best to maintain that form, but you're still able to keep the reps perfect. Let's try that one more time, Victoria. So coming back in 2 seconds, little pause, slowly coming forward. On our overhead press, you want to set up the seat so that it's at a height where you're able to comfortably press up for that starting point. Here we're going to be working more of the pressing muscles. We're working again, shoulders, triceps, a little bit of chest. With this angle, we're going to be emphasizing more shoulders and triceps compared to on the chest press. And just stopping at the top just before you fully straighten your arms. Coming down until your elbows are at least past about 90 degrees. Let's say about something like that, right to the And then we're thinking similar rep range goal here for the upper bodies, 8 to 12 reps at about that 2-2-4 pace. Pressing movements, it's not a real strict hold at the top, just removing that momentum. All right, starting off with our lat pull down here. Victoria's got me to help pull this down. If you do not have a partner, you may need to sit down with the handles in your hands. We're going to be let's demonstrate it that way. Right there, just probably fairly soon. We're not going to have to yeah. Okay. All right, so taking a seat down with the handles here on the lat pull down. You will find on a lot of these machines some pads that can help keep you in place. So just strapping those on until they're snug around your thighs. And then coming up in 4 seconds, we're using that same pace, keeping it pretty simple. Here on this machine, we're going to be working the lats, those muscles around the sides of your back, as well as some of your mid-back muscles and the biceps. Good, so similar to the row, moving those same pulling muscles. Here at this angle, we're just emphasizing the lats a little bit more. And embracing that stretch at the top, but still keeping the shoulders really low. It's going to be great for our posture. All right, moving on to our pullover. Here we're isolating the lats here. We're also going to be working the back of the upper arms, the triceps, keeping that same pace. We're keeping the arms straight as we're coming up and out and away from ourselves, holding the bar. You can limit your range to whatever's most comfortable on your shoulders. We're making sure we keep the shoulders really low. That's going to help us engage the lats a little bit better on this one. You're also going to make sure you're keeping just a tiny forward lean with your torso. And then as we're pulling, keeping that torso right in place. So try not to curl forward as we come down and around. It's leaving all the work for the lats and triceps here. So you're going to be curling up in 2 seconds, keeping your elbows pinned to your side here. So you bring those elbows back a tiny bit. There you go. And on our cable system here, we're using a rope attachment. You may have access to some bars instead. That can still work for this exercise. You're just going to get a little more range of motion coming up with the rope. So we want that cable set up right under you. Main thing is you're just keeping your elbows from moving forward or backwards during the exercise, just isolating that flexion at the elbow. We're going to be working the biceps, a little bit of the forearms. And then as we get to the top, if we add a little supination where we turn those palms up to the ceiling, and we'll get a little more work in the bicep as well there. And then just like on the bicep curl, your elbows are pinned to your side here. We're keeping them right in place, making sure they're not drifting forwards or backwards. Now we're isolating the back of the upper arms, triceps. Now on all of our bicep curl and tricep extension exercises with the rope, we're going to be using some forearms. And as long as this attachment feels okay, for your wrists, you can keep it that way. If it's easier on your wrists or forearms to use a bar, just like we have here on the floor, then you can always switch to those, just depending on what you have access to and whatever gym you're using. Get your elbows back just a tiny bit. Perfect. And then just like with everything else, we're keeping those shoulders low, pinching those shoulder blades together on the way down. Just making sure we're not getting too involved with the shoulders on this one. Isolating those triceps. All right, so moving on to our chest fly. We're keeping the arms out straight. Cables should be set up to where they're about as high, maybe slightly above your shoulders here. We are coming out with the arms straight. We can have just a tiny bend in the elbows, finding whatever range coming back is comfortable on your shoulders. And it's similar to on that pullover, keeping your torso right in place as you're overcoming the force of the weight, as you're bringing those handles together, working the chest, so front of the torso, front of the shoulders, as well as some of the bicep as well. And we're focusing on keeping that low shoulder position. You might feel a little pinch in those shoulder blades as you're coming up, embracing that stretch. All right, so a very accessible exercise, something you do comfortably in most rooms, as long as you've got some kind of pads or pillows to cushion your elbows here. We're focusing on keeping the hips about in line with the shoulders or just above them. We can have a narrow stance with our feet, just like Victoria's showing us here. We can also go a little wider if we need a little more stability for our abs. And just make sure we're staying out of the neck, shoulders, and low back here. We're going to be focusing on developing the abs with this exercise. Something you can do for a length of time. You can also scale this one in intensity by adding weight to your back as is comfortable. And now we've got the other variation here. We've got a push-up plank. Here we've got those arms out straight. So we're going to be using a little bit of our pressing muscles, chest, shoulders, and triceps, along with the abs and maintaining that position. And here we're focusing on keeping those hips just a little bit higher, so just in line with the shoulders. All right, so here, Victoria's demonstrating for us a bird dog. This is another really good abdominal exercise as we're focusing on just maintaining rigidity in the torso, not twisting or turning at the spine, and then using the abs to keep that torso stable as we're changing our center of gravity, as we're adding some leverage against us by straightening the opposite arm and leg here. So just trying to get out as far as you can with your arm and as far back as you can with your leg without arching at all at your back and without leaning forwards or backwards, just staying really square on all fours here. Okay, here Victoria is demonstrating for us curl up. So this is a version where you can have one leg bent and one leg out straight. This just provides a little anchor for you, so that way we're keeping your pelvis and your back really flat into the floor. This is working our abs here. You're just focusing on bringing your head, shoulders, and chest slightly up off the floor, and then just a little pause at the top, and then slowly coming down and relaxing at the bottom. You can do a period of time or reps on one leg bent, and then just switch sides, and then try and keep it about equal between the two.
So one great exercise you can do on your own outside of here would be calf raises, which Jeremy's doing a great job showing us. Keep in mind here is to try and not let your ankles pivot out and just keeping good alignment the whole way through, allowing your body to go directly up and directly down. That's going to maintain the posture. And to get more of a challenge, you can do it off of a surface, anything that's stable. This is a really good height. And so he doesn't have to bring his heels all the way to the ground, but it's just enough to get length on both sides. And if there's a surface in front of you that's stable, a wall is a really good place to keep your balance. And if we don't have a wall, something like a stick or something you can put a little bit of weight into that won't allow you to pivot is very helpful. So Jeremy, I'm trying with this. Perfect. And as you can see, did it change anything about his stability? Does it feel the same?
About the same.
Okay. Yeah, maybe some ways challenging. Good. Perfect. But now there's options. And then another way you can make this more challenging is to try single leg. So let's try that side. Perfect. And if you are doing something single leg, it'll be a good idea to have support to ensure you're not favoring one side or leaning too far forward or back. So this is a good stable position. He's got something on his left and his right. And then if this feels like too much range, another version of this would be to step off of the platform and to just do a standard calf raise with the floor. Same thing, you can hold a wall for stability, or if your balance is feeling pretty good, you can just stand on your own and going up into, pausing for 2, going down and 4. So, and usually about a minute is a good time for you to reach for, but if you're still fatigued, if you're not fatigued yet, you can always slow down the tempo or throw in some holds, and that will make it more challenging. Another great option would be a ball squat. So you'll want to place a yoga ball at the small of your back, and then walk your feet out a little ways to make sure that we don't go past the ankles. You're going to stay directly over it as we go with the range. So this helps keep your back in a more upright position, allowing you to press more through the heels, which is going to be more stable and help use more of the glutes. And as you get tired, the legs might have a tendency to go in, and so making sure that they stay just as wide as your feet is a good reference point, just like Jaren's doing. And if this feels too easy, you can always make it harder by adding some holds. So a hold is going to fatigue your muscles at a faster rate of that static position. And you can always slow it down also. Another good way to do that. And add weight is also good. You can hold some in the front or on the sides. Another variation of the ball squat would be to do a regular standard squat, but to a chair height. Perfect. Jeremy gave a great demonstration, and we'll want to keep going through the range to not let the muscles have a rest in between. So we'll just do a light tap, and then we'll come back up. And this is really good for keeping functional strength, as well as working the quads, the glutes, the abs, and the back. And if squatting this low causes you any pain anywhere, you can modify it by not going quite as low in the range. And if it feels too easy, you can also slow it down, and the tempo should make it more of a challenge. Perfect. And the main thing is that you just want to keep your muscles under tension and not at the cost of your back. So if your back gets tired first, I'll listen to that. Otherwise, Jeremy's setting a great example of keeping a really upright position. Another great exercise for working the lower body while still working on balance and stability would be a lunge. So there's several variations of this. We'll start with a reverse lunge at the start. So it's going to include a really long step back. Perfect. That is about shoulder width apart. Jerem's setting a really good example by keeping an upright position. It'll be easy to want to lean forward, and so keeping it upright will keep your weight distribution even. And having a focal point straight in front of you will really help keep the stability. And if this bothers your knees or your ankles, you can have something by your sides to help support it. Or you don't have to go as low through the range of motion. And if this feels too easy, you can also add weight or holds or change the pace. And this is a good way to get a reference point for how long the stride you need. Another version of this would be to do a walking lunge. So after you bring this foot in, I'm going to have you turn around, and I'm going to do a couple of walking stretching. And so it'll feel like an awkwardly long step at first, but that's going to help ensure that your knee doesn't go too far past your ankle, which is going to keep your knee protected. So we are going to do glute bridge, and this is a really good one for opening up the hips while squeezing the glutes, some of the back and the hamstrings, but you should be feeling your glutes the most out of all the muscles working. And a good range would be once you're in a straight line at the top, and you can work your way into the range, or if things are already feeling loose, you can try to utilize that range, just making sure to not arch the back. And your abs are going to keep your back supported. Another way you can make this more challenging would be to try a single leg. So this one is a good way to test your balance and stability. So you'll want to keep your hips level, prevent them from shifting. And then you'll also want to try to keep your knee at the same height as the other one. Perfect, just like that. And then once you've made it through about a minute or maybe 10 reps on one side, you can switch to the other side. And then another way to also make this more challenging would be to march. So you'll start with both feet planted and then pushing your hips up, trying to keep them up as you extend one leg out. And then plant it. You'll extend the other one out. It's just like you're marching. And so it's working everything together while also not getting much of a break in between. So you'll just want to make sure to pay attention to your back and listen if your body's telling you you're feeling another spot. Right. And you can also add weight to just about this area to make it more challenging, or you can add a resistance band just above the knees to make it more challenging. So Jeremy will be demonstrating for us the standing version of abduction. So working the outer thigh as well as the glutes. So you can hold something for stability, preferably on the opposite side of the side that's working. So we'll anchor with one leg and keeping the body upright, just moving your opposite leg out and two, pausing for two, and over four. You can always add a little bit more resistance by holding it in your most contracted position, or you can slow down the pace or increase the resistance bands. And the key thing to keep in mind here is to try and not lean to one side or compromise the back. So everything should be staying in a solid line, except for the leg that's moving. And then another way to work the glutes with maybe less of the outer thigh would be to stand in this position and then extend your leg back behind you to really work your glutes. So, just like that. And this one is really useful for working the glute without getting the back too involved. And so As you're going through the range, just making sure that you're staying upright and not leaning forward, because that's your body's natural way of trying to get more range, but it's not actually working the muscles harder. And if standing on one leg is a challenge and you want to do something that has a little bit more stability, clamshells are a great variation to work the glutes. So to do this one, you'll want to make sure that everything's in a really straight line. It'll be easy for the hip to want to roll back. And so you'll just want to make sure it's forward like Jeremy has it. And as you're going through the range, you'll keep your heels together and then just pressing your knees apart. And that's really going to require glutes to activate and prevent the back from taking breath. And you can always make this harder with more resistance bands or different level of intensity resistance. And same thing with the pace can also make it more challenging. We'll go through about 10 to 12 reps for about a minute and a half on one side, and then go to the other side. Another really great one for the hips would be to work hip flexors. This one's really good for stretching and strengthening the front of the hip. So you'll just put a resistance band on the front of the feet, just below the toes, so your foot has more support. And then you'll widen your stance so your feet are about a shoulder width apart, and then you'll pull one knee towards your hip. Just like that. And as you're going through the range, same thing, we might want to come in. So making sure it's staying in a straight line or even a little bit further to the side is going to keep your hip more stable.